Day 5 of the trial, Donald Trump has to sit there while everybody testifies, because those are the rules here. And today was the day when they were talking to David Pecker. He's going to come back later in the week as well. But David Pecker ran a big media company which owned and ran the National Enquirer. Now, the National Enquirer is that paper that you see. It's the supermarket tabloid. It's probably one of the most aggressive of tabloids. And one of the things that you kind of know when you look at it there, or I hope you know, at the supermarket counter is like, maybe it's true, maybe it's not. It's really just kind of entertainment. Entertainment, and a lot of Hollywood celebrities have gone and sued them, and there's been a lot of that. They've actually gotten some stuff right. I mean, remember when they reported on John Edwards. So some stuff they get right, some stuff they really don't, but I think everybody kind of takes it with a grain of salt. Well, apparently, David Pecker, who ran this, and Donald Trump are really good friends, like going all the way back to the 1980s, and then they sort of solidified that friendship during the Apprentice years, and Trump would feed him stories, this, that, and the other, and David Pecker would promote some of those things. Well, when he decided to run for president, David Pecker reportedly continued that friendship, and as a result, was out there looking for negative stories about the people that he was up against. And so let's just say, let me preface this, we'll go through them because Carson was the victim of one of these, and so was Ted Cruz. But let me just say, like, politics is one dirty, nasty business. And this is done. And they will print lies about you. And it's just what sort of happens. The difference here is that normally you go to the New York Times, right? The New York Times has sort of the control over all that. I mean, they were talking about Tulsi Gabbard being a Russian spy, for goodness sakes, ladies and gentlemen. All right, so don't pretend this stuff doesn't happen. It's just that nobody used the National Enquirer before to do it, right? Trump didn't have the New York Times on speed dial. He did have his friend who ran the National Enquirer. So according to some of this information that just came out, David Pecker talked about these so-called cash and kill deals that were being done. And in these cash and kill deals, they would pay for, say, a negative story on Trump while having a negative story instead published on somebody else. So let me just share with you, during the testimony, former National Enquirer publisher David Pecker detailed making up the piece that the publication ran about Senator Ted Cruz's father knowing JFK's assassin. He also detailed working with Michael Cohen to target Trump's primary opponents. But then you just have to ask yourself, like, okay, so, I mean, the Ted Cruz story, I always kind of got a kick out of, and I thought was pretty wild, and I actually never believed it, but I always thought, gosh, Ted is actually really amazing because he's still friends with Trump after Trump was apparently behind the story about his dad and then, commented on his wife's looks, and yet they're still friends because you know what? That's politics. For better or for worse, that's politics. Well, in this case, we've got Donald Trump apparently doing these catch and kill stories that they're trying to say is illegal. So that was a big part of what was being discussed today. Is it, in fact, illegal to catch and kill a story? And I'm going to just tell you, no. I mean, maybe it's not super lovely ethical, but these things do happen. In the case of the National Enquirer, they would go out and look for a negative story. And this is apparently what happened with Stormy Daniels, AKA Stephanie Clifford. Whether or not it's true, we don't even need to debate it. He would say it's not true, but let's just, who cares? Like, somebody's saying something negative and she's about to go and sell her story and make it into a book or this, that, and the other. National Enquirer comes along and is like, oh, we can take your story. And then they never publish it. But they bought the rights to the story, which is why you never sign an NDA, right? Really, because you don't want somebody buying your freedom of speech. And yet, it's perfectly legal. I mean, I don't know where they're going to go in terms of their argument. I'm not an attorney, you know that. So, the economy, we can duck the Fed any day. As far as this stuff goes, I think they're going to have a really hard time trying to convince a judge that you can't do that. Now, was this a political expense? I don't know. I mean, I actually think that's one where, you might be able to get the jury, if the jury is very, very biased, to side with him on that. But again, is it really a political expense if you just don't want bad information coming out about your personal life? So all of this is indeed going to prove to be very interesting and set some interesting precedents. But I just don't think, knowing what I know about the media, knowing what I know about politics, knowing what I know about journalism, I really don't think that they're going to have much there. Again, remember, the New York Times has done this forever, right? Like they have their horse and they're backing their horse, and they actually print a lot of negative stuff on other people. I mean, maybe some of it's real, maybe some of it's not. Hey, what about the whole Russia collusion thing? That wasn't real, right? So that's just, that's kind of stuff that media does, and they're trying to help their so-called horse in the race. And it's bad, but whether or not it's illegal, I just don't think they're going to get there. So that's part of what's being discussed today. Again, David Pecker having spoken, remember what the New York Times had to say with the allegations about Tulsi Gabbard, and that tells you everything you know about how the media and politicians do in fact play hardball.